Hello, everybody. This is the Stronghold podcast. We're coming at you from Stronghold MMA in Singapore. And, dude, I'm pretty excited for this podcast. I'm here with Jake, the producer. What's up, Jake?
How you doing? Just pressing buttons frantically as we start off.
Listen, I'll just be honest to anybody listening to this podcast. We are not in the clearest of minds. We are all over the place right now. One of the hardest working students I know who's sitting behind... Vlad, go behind Jake. Just directly behind him for me. And kneel down a little bit. So that's my brother Vlad right there, right? Vlad is one of the hardest working students I know. He's a Russian. Oh, thank you, man. He's a Russian kid who's been training his ass off for the last year with me. He's here 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, doesn't take a day off. And, he's leaving pretty soon, so we're not going to be able to see him much recently. And we're all kind of bummed out, but we're celebrating. We're all pretty drunk. I'm just going to be honest about it. They finished a whole bottle of vodka in approximately 5 minutes. I don't even know. We had one shot, we disappeared to set up, and then when we came back, that whole fucking bottle was gone. So,
I would like to point out at this stage, I'm fairly sober at this point, comparatively to everyone else.
You know what the key word here is? Fairly sober is the key word. So, we love Vlad, and we're here celebrating. We've had a bunch of beers, and we've had some shots, and by the way, we've had one of the best fight weekends in months. I would say probably since the coronavirus stuff happened. We had an amazing fight weekend. Just today we had the Roy Jones Jr. Mike Tyson fight. There was a UFC on, Anthony Smith versus Devin Clark, and there was the last week fight. So for the listeners, Jake and I came in last week to record the podcast for the Figueredo and Perez fight. But while we were here, the rain was just so crazy that we couldn't even record the podcast. We sat here, like torrential downpour. It sounded like a monsoon or something like that. So we were sat here, and then we were going to record a guillotine video because Figueredo finished Perez with a guillotine, and guillotine happens to be my favorite move. It's like probably all the people listening can relate. Everybody has like their A move. Jake, what's your A move? If you had to pick, what's the move that you're a blue belt, but if you had, what's your purple belt move, or what's your best move?
Definitely X guard, single leg X to a heel hook.
Yeah,
is my instant go-to every single occasion.
Yeah, you're all about foot locks and heel hooks and stuff like that. And for me, it was always the guillotine. Doesn't matter who I roll with. There's like a 5% chance I can catch you in a guillotine, right? Like black belt, any level. Even when I was a purple belt, I had a good one. And I'm not trying to gloat because I have some shitty-ass techniques too, right? Like, I have some sucky techniques. I'm not a black belt in every technique, far from it. But the guillotine, I think, is my favorite move. And we were going to record that video last week, and we got rained out. It kind of sucked. But this week we're back, and it's been one of the best fight weeks of the week. We have a loaded podcast for y'all. We have the Tyson fight with Roy Jones Jr. We have the UFC. We have a couple freak show fights just to mix it up. There was a freak show fight in Russia where a 240-kilo fat ass motherfucker fought some girl. By the way, not exaggerating at all. It's exactly what it sounds like. It was 200 kilo, right? Over 200 kilo.
Yeah.
And then he fought some, 60-kilo girl or something like that. So we got that freak show on for you. We have an ass crack street fight. That's the only way I can describe. How would you describe that, Jake?
Two men trying to fight whilst one of them is half naked.
No, and it's only butthole. All you see is butthole.
Pure chocolate starfish, nothing but that.
And we're gonna share that with y'all. So this is gonna be a fun podcast. It's gonna be a weird podcast. I am probably more buzzed/drunk for this podcast at the beginning than any podcast I've ever done. So we'll see how deep that goes and where it leads. And also, for the listeners, in tandem with this podcast, we're also releasing the finish to the Anthony Smith, Devin Clark fight, which Anthony Smith won. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it yet. Anthony Smith won via first round triangle choke. And what I loved about this finish is that he used a basic triangle choke. This is like white belt, blue belt level triangle choke. So for all of you guys listening to this, if a triangle is one of your favorite moves, and it should be, because in my opinion, it's the best submission off your back. A lot of people do arm bars, omoplatas, various submissions from your back. but chokes are the king.
Yeah. The omoplata is amazing, but you rarely see a finish from it. People use it to get the other person to roll, so then you can spin and get to side control. Like, I love an omoplata as well if we're talking moves, but I pull it not really expecting the finish, just to advance position.
Well, it works in the gi pretty well, but in no gi it's tricky. I know Ben Saunders, I think he was the first one to finish the omoplata in an MMA fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because the omoplata is one of those moves where you learn it as a white belt. I mean, it's like triangle, armbar, omoplata. That's the trifecta of submissions that you see typically from the guard. And see, I've had a lot of beer. I lost my train of thought. It's like, okay, I got it back. Point is, these are the 3 submissions that you typically see in tandem when you're on your back, like, for example, in the closed guard. And it was really nice to see Anthony Smith hit this triangle from the closed guard because it's a bread and butter submission. Everybody will learn an overhook triangle within the white belt, blue belt. And so with this video, we're going to tag it and we'll link it. And what is it, 10 minutes or something? We did a 10-minute video.
Yeah, 7 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So we did like a less than 10-minute long video on how to set up this triangle. I don't know the quality of the video. I can't speak for that because we'd already drank 2 beers and a bottle of vodka when we filmed it. But, you know, we do what we do here. And it should be good fun for all of you guys. So let's get this podcast started. Jake, what are we doing, brother? Where are we starting?
I think we'll start with the Battle of the Old Men, the Tyson Jones fight, which I didn't watch. I was following along on the live stream on the Guardian because I was watching the UFC at the time. But you watched it?
Yeah, I watched it. I basically phoned in my job, and when everybody else was doing jiu-jitsu and I'm supposed to be teaching class, I'm sat there on my laptop watching this damn thing unfold while everyone else is working, and nobody was teaching class because this is the tricky thing, man. For the listeners, I work from 10 until 3 or 4, roughly speaking, a.m., like 10 a.m. until 3 or 4 p.m. And in Singapore, that's exactly when the fights take place. So even today, I saw the prelims. I saw, I'm so foggy right now, man. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm so foggy. But I saw most of the prelims, like 4 fights on the prelims, and then basically at 10 o'clock we have kids classes, and on the weekend there's a ton of kids. So I'm kind of in and out, trying to sneak a peek when I can. But I watched most of the prelims, and but by the time 12, which is like midnight stateside, 11, 12, 1 o'clock rolls around, I'm teaching class, so I have to go back and watch later. But I'll tell you, if we're going to talk about the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight, I was pleasantly surprised. And let me amend that. I'm pleasantly surprised and expectedly disappointed. And I'm not disappointed in the fighters. I thought Roy Jones Jr. and Tyson, they fought. I was pretty critical about how I thought the fight would take place. So let me just clarify. Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. exceeded my expectations. But boxing, the WBC, and all of the alphabet bodies did what they always did, which is disappoint every boxing fan in the history of the sport, because Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson came to fight. Tyson, he pushed the pace, man. You could tell at the beginning of the fight, like within the first 30 seconds, that Tyson was throwing heat, which I didn't expect, to be honest, because, and I put this on my Facebook, and I made a prediction that turned out to be true, but wasn't the most accurate, that, for the people that followed the fight. Jake, while we're chatting, can you bring up the rules of the fight? There was like a meme I saw, or a graphic or something, and it talked about the rules going into the fight. There were no knockouts allowed. A cut would end the fight. 2-minute rounds instead of 3, and then there were only 8 rounds, and there was all these stipulations with the fight, right? And Tyson and Roy are making millions of dollars for this fight, and I just thought, first of all, that it would be a snoozer, that it would be bullshit, because there's no knockouts. And they said there would be no winner, and all of this kind of stuff. And the crux of the fight, for me, came down to what the fighters and the trainers were saying, and then what the WBC was saying. And the WBC was basically saying that, they're the rule makers. They were saying that there's no winner, everybody's friends.
I got
Oh, can you pull it up?
Yeah.
You have it already? All right. Okay, so can you zoom in there and read that for me, Jake?
So we got, it has been sanctioned as an exhibition bout. It will take place over 8 rounds lasting 2 minutes each. The boxers will not be required to wear headgear. They will be wearing 12-ounce gloves. If either boxer suffers a bad cut, the bout is over. 3 celebrity, and this is where it got screwy at the end, WBC judges will score the fight remotely.
And we're gonna come back to that.
Yeah,
anyway.
We're going to come back to that. In an unofficial capacity. Winner will be announced and will be awarded a special frontline battle belt.
And we'll come back to... Hold it. Turn the camera to me real quick. We'll come back to winner shortly. Anyway.
And then, the result will not count on either man's professional record.
Okay, so straight away, I'm sure there's red flags in your ears as you podcast or YouTube listeners are hearing this. We all knew this going in. And if you're a regular boxing fan, this is no surprise. The alphabet sanctioning bodies in boxing are the worst entities in the history of sports. The NBA, the NFL, the NHL, the UFC, the European football leagues. Okay, maybe there's one, Jake, you can probably vouch for me here. Maybe there's one thing that's worse than boxing sanctioning bodies, and that might be FIFA.
FIFA,
outside of that,
FIFA are a massively corrupt organisation. Don't get me wrong, but they don't.
WBC,
But they can't fix match results. Unlike in boxing, where it's like, well, if we do a draw, they can fight again, and we can make more.
So
money.
boxing's still number one. We can all agree boxing is still number one. So, we'll talk about the Tyson Roy Jones thing, and then we'll get to the Jake Paul shit and the UFC. But I feel like the moral of the story here, in my eyes, was Tyson came to fight. Tyson came to fight, which I did not expect. I expected it partly, but and I said I did a Facebook post earlier today where I basically said, which turned out to be true, but they exceeded my expectations. And what I said was, the contract had been signed. There are no knockouts. That's in the contract. Like, that's not just the fighters or the promoters or whoever talking shit. Like, the contract had been signed that they're not allowing knockouts. It's an exhibition fight, right? And Tyson made what, 10 million? Roy made 3 million or whatever. Maybe there's something on top of that. And so if one or the other were to if Tyson were to knock Jones out, he loses all that money. It's against the rules. They can't knock each other out. And Mike fucking Tyson or Roy Jones Jr. are not giving up millions. This was the narrative going into the fight that drove me crazy. Because everybody, Joe Rogan, all of the commentators, Max Kellerman on ESPN, all of these people were like, oh yeah, but Tyson's a knockout artist. When he gets in there, the instincts will kick in and blah, blah, blah. Right? And by the way, I'm not even shitting on Tyson by saying that, but I just know the narrative here. And if you get paid $10 million to show up, you're not going to knock the guy out and forfeit all of that money because they're trying to fight, but they're also trying to save face, and they're also old, and they don't want head trauma, and I get all that, right? Like, I'm not shitting on the fighters. This is these sanctioning bodies that I'm shitting on. And nobody in the history of sports deserves more shit than the WBC, the WBA, all of these alphabet bodies that sanction boxing. And I'll go into the corruption first. Okay, I'll go into the corruption first. First of all, for the listeners, Mike Tyson won that fight.
So as I say, I didn't watch it because I was watching the UFC, but I was doing the follow along on The Guardian, and they scored it 79-73 Tyson, and the 3 celebrity judges scored it a draw.
I know, this is, oh God, I can't even. Oh, it makes me so upset. First of all, I don't want to go into conspiratorial territory here, but I'm gonna. I'm gonna go down that road immediately, because each round they released the celebrity WBC champion judges scorecards or whatever, and they gave Roy Jones Jr. some rounds that they should not have given him. And it was funny because like the first 3 rounds, Tyson got all the judges scorecards and everything, and like except maybe one. I mean, you guys feel free to correct me because I was teaching class and I'm in and out. I watched the whole fight, but I'm like checking back, make sure no one's getting fucking choked unconscious, and I'm looking back and watching the fight and then making sure no one's got the arm broken and blah blah, right? So my attention is divided, but I'm focused mainly on the fights. And I think it was the third or the fourth round that I started seeing that these celebrity judges and these WBC judges were giving Roy Jones Jr. rounds. And I mean, he wasn't doing anything. Here's the thing that surprised me most, and this is why I know Tyson brought the fight, because you could see within the first round that Roy looked shocked. He didn't expect Tyson to throw like he was throwing. And I thought it was the perfect exhibition bout. And when I say that, I mean Tyson was throwing hard enough to hurt Roy, and Roy later on, in the later rounds, he came on a little bit better. But in the later rounds, they were throwing hard enough to hurt each other. I thought it was going to be like a glorified sparring match. I thought they wouldn't risk shit. I mean, imagine being a 54-year-old Mike Tyson, and you zig when you should have zagged, and you go into a punch that's like, they're pulling it 30 or 40%. You zig, but your momentum is going into it. All of a sudden, someone's flat on their back, and they're not getting their money.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I was concerned about. I'll be honest with you. I was impressed with the power Tyson was throwing. And you could see in between the first and the second round that Roy wasn't the body shots were hurting. The head shots were hurting. Tyson was throwing hard. And Tyson looked good. Bro, he looked like a spring at the waist like he did when he was 20. Like, for you guys looking at me, he was like, gadoosh, coming up, rolling the hooks, the uppercuts were there, the body shots were there.
He said as well that his cardio was like absolutely on point.
The cardio was on point. Roy looked the most tired, which I was surprised by, because if you were to pick in their prime who was the cardio machine and who was Roy was the cardio guy. He doesn't fuck around. But Roy Jones Jr. had bigger tits than my wife, and that's no disrespect to my wife. That's just a fact. That's just a fact.
Yeah, he looked a little doughy and Tyson looked jacked.
Yes. I think Tyson came into that fight more prepared. I think he exceeded expectations, including what Roy thought he was going to get from Tyson.
Tyson came into that fight more prepared than he came into fights at the end of his actual boxing career.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I would actually agree with that. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I love Mike Tyson. I picked Roy to win. The reason I picked Roy to win is there's a myriad of reasons, right? One, because Roy fought as recently as 2018 professionally. Not exhibition, not bullshit, like fighting good ranked guys. Tyson hasn't fought in 15 years, And my thought process going into the fight was, okay, 15 years you don't train. Roy's been active until 3 years ago. So I thought getting off the couch, Roy would have the advantage. Granted, Roy'd been knocked out pretty bad a couple times, but only a few times in his career, and he had some time to some time off to rest. But I was impressed with the quality of the fight, which is number one. Number two, go back to the corruption. God, it's so boxing. Boxing.
Please,
why boxing?
Do better.
Why? Just do better. Boxing. This is why the UFC is killing you. This is why more people watch one championship than boxing. Because, Tyson clearly won the fight, and I'm sitting there with my students watching this thing happen. And then they're like, okay, we're going to go to the judges' scorecard. Here's all the WBC judges. And then, literally all the commentators are like, oh, Tyson handily won the fight. And then they're sitting there, and there's some jerk-off referee in the middle who's holding both their hands, and they're like, the official decision is here. And in my head, I'm like, here we go. And they're like, the judges just declare the fight a draw. And I'm just like, oh, God.
Well, there's a surprise.
Okay, here's some perspective. This is the 4-division, undisputed boxing champion of Roy Jones Jr., one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters of all time, fighting the most iconic knockout artist in the history of boxing in his first real fight in 15 years that one person clearly won, and it's a draw.
But then you see the interview at the end, and straight away you realise why it's a draw, because Roy Jones Jr. is like, maybe we can have a rematch. Can I have $3 million more, please?
Oh God, I love boxing. I've been boxing for 15 years. I love boxing. It's my favorite thing. It's one of my favorite things to do of all time. And it's just like, they both fought well. Roy fought well. Tyson fought well. Like, I thought Tyson was more prepared. He looked better, which I didn't expect. I thought Roy would be the better prepared guy. But just to see this participation trophy between two of the greatest boxers of the last 20 years, I don't know. Shout it off in the comments, but I was just like, I was really disappointed because it's an exhibition. It doesn't go on your professional record anyway. Give Tyson the win.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't count on your record. Tyson boxed better. He was better prepared. Like, it doesn't mean anything. But we don't want to, as viewers, watch this, especially people that paid for the pay-per-view, that were crunk to watch this fight, that devolved into exactly what everybody knew it would devolve into, which is boxing corruption. And it's boxing in a nutshell. That and the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao fight, and the Canelo Triple G fight, is just all the Timothy Bradley Pacquiao fight. These are all been fights in the last 5 years. And for you boxing people that listen to this, you all know exactly what I'm talking about.
But you go on to that as well, and we've talked about it before, that they could have, like, the heavyweight division at this moment in time should be the greatest thing on the face of this planet. And fuck it, none of you are fighting each other. Like, we're going to keep you all apart. I've just brought it up now. Deontay Wilder's insane excuses as to why he lost to Tyson Fury, which we were going to talk about last week and we missed. It's like, oh my God. That,
to me, and I'm saying this with deep, deep regret and satisfaction. Deontay Wilder, I'm an American, right? And I followed boxing closely. And people were crunk about Mike Tyson when he was knocking people out. Nobody in the history of boxing up until the second Wilder fight with Tyson Fury has the knockout percent. Klitschko, Tyson, all of the greatest, Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. No one in the history of boxing has a knockout record like Deontay Wilder. He's 210 pounds and he's the greatest knockout artist in the history of the hundreds of years of professional boxing. And then to hear him make these excuses and to not have the Joshua fight booked at some point and to not have the Fury Joshua fight booked at some point just goes to show you how fucked up and corrupt boxing is. And to not have the Pacquiao Mayweather fight booked when they're in their prime. There's just so many things that you're just like, what are we doing? And it's just, as a fan, it makes it so hard to get on board. These fights are past their prime, they're bullshit, and then you have Wilder talking about, how many excuses did he make?
6.
And I loved him. He's an American with the greatest knockout percentage in the history of boxing. And you just hear excuse after excuse after excuse. And I love Wilder. He's got a daughter who's got these problems, and he trained for 3 years and bronze medaled in the Olympics and came on to be the greatest knockout artist in the history of boxing. And you hear all of these excuses and these issues and all this shit. I'm just like, I try to give boxing a chance. I always watch it, but it just never feels like it's hitting the peak of interest when it does. And then even with this fight, right? Fucking Jake Paul is the co-main event against a basketball player on an undercard with a 54-year-old Mike Tyson. And by the way, I'm not saying I'm sad these fights happen. I'm happy that, and there's entertainment to be had here. But if you really look at this and you take an objective perspective of the landscape of boxing, you're just like.
But if I'm Conor McGregor right now, like, Jake Paul's calling out Conor McGregor. Now, you know, McGregor's attitude is you take, and I love McGregor, but his attitude is you take the easiest fight for the most money. So him fighting Jake Paul is an absolute piece of piss for him.
Oh, yeah.
And he will make, what, 100 million? Just because of the ridiculousness of the entire situation.
Yeah.
If I'm McGregor, I'm all over.
Yeah, if you're Conor, would you rather fight fucking Manny Pacquiao, who's the current champion, who just beat fucking Keith Thurman at 40 years old, or would you rather fight Jake fucking Paul?
But even madder than that, which one of those two fights is going to make more money? Jake Paul, I'd say. But no,
if it wasn't for the UFC having to negotiate on behalf of Conor, I would agree with you. But to get Conor to the table, they have to go through the UFC because he's exclusively signed. But okay, all of that aside, the more interesting one that makes more sense is Jake Paul and Dylan Dennis. That is the one that makes sense to me.
See, that's an interesting fight.
That's actually interesting because Dylan Dennis' stand-up, spoiler alert, is not the fucking best, right? Conor would fuck Jake Paul up. He would fuck him up. Conor McGregor won rounds off of Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor starts Dustin Poirier. He beat Max Holloway. He knocked out Eddie Al.
Only man
Conor
to win
McGregor's
around.
fucking legit. But Dylan Dennis is a different game. That is more interesting to me. And he was calling out both after his win. And by the way, just to touch on that, since you brought the top, did you manage to catch that one? You were watching the UFC, right?
Yeah.
It was, again, probably not a spoiler to people who listen to this podcast, but go ahead and take a guess what happens when you put a basketball player in a boxing fight with a YouTube celebrity who can actually box. And also, for the people listening, Jake Paul is the better boxer of the Paul brothers. Logan is okay, but anybody who knows boxing knows that Jake is actually the better of the two. Even when he fought in the undercard when Logan Paul fought KSI, you can tell Jake's the cleaner. He's just, everything's snappier, it's cleaner. He's not working for it. And this boxer, can you pull up, do me a favor, pull up his Wikipedia just so I can see what his deal was, because I didn't hear about him before this fight.
Which one, Nate?
Jake Paul, Nate
Robinson.
Nate Robinson. Because the Pauls have been training for a long time now.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, if you want to go back and watch this fight, and you want to know a red flag to see when people fighting, you just saw this Robinson guy. He was chasing for the knockout immediately. And when people are headhunting so much in the first round, like swinging bombs, that's what that is fear. Because, if you're listening to this podcast, for those of you that are fighters, or for those of you who are just fans but have watched a lot, people that don't have fear don't feel like they have to chase the knockout. Like, they will let things unfold. They'll read. They'll see weaknesses. And when people just start throwing haymakers instantly, they know that their only chance is like the flash knockout, right? But as a experienced competitor, you just gotta wait. You just gotta wade through that. You gotta keep your eyes open, keep your defense sharp. Those punches are gonna go off the forearms, the gloves, the shoulders, or whatever. And this Robinson cat was just firing bombs immediately. And within 2 rounds, you could tell he did not have the confidence to sit in the pocket and trade. So what do you got?
Well, I know nothing about this sport, but it appears he's like a legit NBA player.
He played for the Bulls or something. What was it?
New York Knicks, Boston
the
Celtics,
Knicks.
Oklahoma City Thunder, Golden State Warriors, Chicago Bulls, and Denver Nuggets. First time 3 slam dunk champion. So he's a legitimate athlete. But
He's
not
a legit
boxer.
athlete. But that does not make a fighter.
No.
Not if you do it cheap. Not if you just think because you're an athlete you can go in and then box with people who are boxers. Because fighting is not... It's not...
Sorry, I just brought up his professional boxing record.
Oh, Jesus God.
1 loss, 0 wins. One loss to Jake Paul.
Okay, first of all, Robinson getting a bad rap, You fight a professional boxing fight in your first fight against... Now, Jake Paul has been boxing. Can you pull up Jake Paul?
Yeah.
Or at least his... I mean, I know he fought amateur on the Logan Paul cards, and then I know he made his pro debut before that when Logan fought KSI, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, so there you go. He's... let me bring that up.
But he's been boxing for a long time. He's had fights.
So
That's the
2
difference.
wins, 2 KOs.
Yep. Yeah, because even when I watched the KSI, I can't remember who he fought in the first fight, but I watched it, and even when I was watching it, I was like, okay, I know that Jake and Logan have actually been training for quite a while now. What do you got?
No. You know how we're terrible at saying names occasionally on this podcast.
No, there's never been any history of that.
So
You say it perfect. It's never racist the first time.
Don't know what this is. An Eson Gibb.
Okay, I'll give you credit. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Yeah. But anyway, I watched the fights, and what you saw was somebody who thought they could go in there and just knock someone out. And then you saw Jake, who was patient, knew he just had to avoid the big shots, and wore him down. And he fucking knocked him out unconscious, flat-faced him.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad. It was a bad knockout. And he knocked him down once before, face planted him, and he got up, and then he fucking properly finished him. So, but if you're watching this and you want to know a red flag, somebody who chases after a knockout in 1 or 2 minutes because they don't have patience, because what that is the fear. Yeah. It's the anxiety. You're like, I got to get him quick, because over time, your skill level between your opponents will... The person who's more skilled, the variation increases as time goes on.
Yeah.
Right? So you can surprise people early. Catch them in a minute, catch them in 2 minutes. But the longer the fight goes on, the more the skill disparity becomes apparent.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this was. I mean, in the first 10 seconds, he's fucking running across the ring, throwing bombs. Jake would tie him up and tag him, and tie him up and tag him. And in the second round, he just found it. Right? He just found it, dropped him once, and then knocked him unconscious. And, I mean, that was basically it. I mean, this Conor McGregor shit is fucking crazy. He's just saying that to pump him up. And part of that might draw Dylan Dennis in. But listen, if it's a pure boxing fight, Dylan Dennis gonna have problems. But if it's an MMA fight, Dylan Dennis will fuck Jake Paul up.
He will fucking murder him within a minute.
Dylan Dennis will wreck him in a jiu-jitsu or an MMA context. But in a boxing fight, that's why that's interesting.
But I think no one's... That's not headlining a pay-per-view. Like, no one's watching.
Dude, that would headline any fight in boxing except for fucking Fury and Wilder, or Fury, because Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
That was the co-main event. You had fucking Badu Jack, who's a 2-time world champion, the third fight behind Jake Paul and a basketball player. You know how absurd that is? Badu Jack is a 2-time world champion. Fighting on below Jake Paul, a YouTuber and a basketball player. What a weird world we live in right now.
What's Tyson Fury's cousin called?
Huey Fury.
No, not him. I can't remember it, but on the Logan Paul card, KSI, they had Tyson Fury's cousin, who's like a world champion as well, on the undercard. It's insane.
Well, no. Look this up for me. All the boxing people are gonna hate me when they listen to this, but who's the other English guy? Oh, God. It trains with Tyson Fury. Super English.
We were on about the same guy.
If you go to the previous fight, the Logan Paul KSI, he was on the undercard of that. And he's fighting... Oh, God, I hate... my brain's not... For the listeners, I'm sorry. I'm more drunk than I should be, which... is making me kind of happy, and I feel like I'm extroverting a little bit more, but also my memory's shit. But he fought on the undercard. Oh, God.
They fought twice.
He's one of the best in the world.
Yeah, we're on about the same person.
I know.
I can't remember his name either.
Anyway, fuck. Can you do me a favor and pull up, just while we're talking, pull up the Logan Paul KSI. He's like the second main event or whatever on that card.
Even more insanely, turns out they fought twice.
Who's that?
KSI and Logan Paul.
But it was the second one. I think it was the second one. Yeah, they fought twice.
Santiago. Oh, God, I've got the full breakdown here.
Just the card. Just if you pull up the name, as soon as I see the name, I'll know it. He's top contender in multiple divisions. Anyway, I don't know if we need to beat the horse too much.
Billy Joe Saunders.
Hey. Thank you. One of the best in the world. Billy Joe Saunders is one of the best in the world.
And he was on their undercard.
Fighting below KSI.
Well done, boxing.
Paul. I mean, that's the state of boxing. That's how you know that boxing is in a horrible state. When YouTubers are getting more, they're the A side to world-class champions in boxing. And that's how you know that this shit is corrupt and it's beyond the point of repair. In the current state. I know Zuffa, one of the partner companies that owns the UFC, is planning on getting into boxing. that Dana White's the head of, and that is the move, because with all these alphabet bodies, and did you see the WBC is adding more weights? They have these diamond champions, they have these fucking, like the WBC is adding more champions and more weight classes. Nobody in boxing knows who the best in the world is anymore.
No.
It's bullshit. It's so bad. You have the WBC, the IB blah, you have the WBA, you have the lineal, you have the diamond, you have the all of these things. It just waters down the product so much. And then you have these WBC corrupt ass judges scoring the Tyson Fury and the Tyson Jones Jr. fight as a draw. And I'm telling you, I saw this. Tyson was winning all the rounds, and then like the second or third round, they started giving him to Jones, and then they would start giving more to Jones, all of which you could see the ultimate thing leading to a draw. That shit was preconceived. It was pre-planned. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Fuck you guys, but this is what I think. You see Canelo, you see Triple G, that first fight, you see Horn, you see Pacquiao, you see Timothy Bradley and Pacquiao, all this shit. It's corrupt. It's fucked. And that's where we are in boxing. I'll still watch all of them. If they're good,
every single one.
You know, I'll be disappointed constantly. And that's the state that boxing is in. Let's move to a actual sport, MMA.
I know we said we weren't going to talk about last week's card, but a couple of fights on there that were amazing. The Shevchenko fight, where it looked for about one round she might have a fight on her hands, and then went, oh no, I'll just go up another gear. Yeah. Like, she is something else. She's
obviously the second best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You know, her and Amanda Nunes had 2 fights. This split decision in the second one, it's years now, I can't remember exactly what the result was for the first one, but competitive. Yeah. Only fights Amanda Nunes has had that's competitive, except for the Durandamy fight.
Yeah.
Durandamy, I thought, was winning on the feet, but Amanda kept getting those takedowns. So, I mean, obviously, the best 2 female fighters in the world are Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko. And Antonina fought on that same card. She looked pretty good. And then just to quickly touch on it, we had the Figueredo fight and the Perez fight. Figueredo looks like the
real deal.
The real
Gonna
deal.
Stay that.
The real deal. Knockout power, submission power. Looks, and I think the best thing he could have possibly done was take another fight on short notice. It just builds the legend. I kept mistakenly, I'm like a fucking asshole, calling Perez Moreno in the last podcast because I knew Moreno was the number 1 contender, and Perez Moreno, you know, I don't have the wherewithal to distinguish the Mexican and South American and all those names, so I've mixed them up. Call me racist, whatever. Point is, so now he's doing a quick turnaround. He's fighting Moreno, and that is an interesting fight because Moreno won on the same card. He looked super dominant. Dislocated his shoulder. Did you see that shit?
Yeah, with the pop back in.
Yeah. Charmaine, what were you telling me about? Oh, is she here?
No.
Not here yet? There was was it India? No, it was Nayla. So we have this girl that trains, she trains with your daughter. And we have this little girl, 7 years old. Her name's Nayla. Her her dad, shows you how much I've had to drink. Her dad comes and trains here in the weekend. And when it's on Saturday, we do like 3 hours of sparring, right? So we have boxing, then we have Muay Thai sparring, and then we have gi sparring. And it's just sparring the whole day. Saturday's a sparring day, so we just do it for all the classes. And Charmaine told me this funny thing. She goes, because Chris trains in the classes, so his 7-year-old daughter is just sitting there watching, and we were like, dude, why is she sitting here? And she's like, oh, I tried to send her home, but she wants to watch. She wants to watch the adults train. And so we're just sparring for like 3 hours or whatever. And then my wife, Charmaine, comes up to me and she goes, oh yeah, I was sitting there talking to Nayla, a 7-year-old, about MMA and all that kind of stuff. And Nayla goes, yeah, I was watching, my dad made me watch these fights the other day, and it was the Perez-Figueredo fight. And so she's telling Charmaine, oh yeah, we were watching this fight, and I saw this guy get caught, and his shoulder dislocated, and I saw that it was out of the socket. And Charmaine told me that, she goes, you watched that? Oh shit! Realizing that she was talking to a 7-year-old, and then Charmaine's like, she catches me right, she's like, oh, I should not have been like, oh shit, right? It's like, she's literally only talking to her, but she, in her head, she was like, why are you watching adults get their shoulders dislocated and stuff in a fight? And then, and Nayla's just like, woo. Well, she kind of smiles and laughs off the whole thing, but then Charmaine was like, oh yeah, I had to tell him that I swore in front of your daughter on accident because I was in adult mode because the kids' classes were already over. I'm telling the story about Nayla.
Oh, you want some vodka?
Yeah, I'll take a shot. I'll take a shot of vodka in honor of Vlad, the legend there in the back. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty funny. Charmaine swearing in front of small children accidentally.
Don't say that.
I'm telling the story, man. I'm telling the story on the podcast. It's fine.
In secret.
Well, there's no secrets here. There's no secrets here. Anyway, dude, let's move on to the MMA.
Today, how much of the card did you see? Because you were watching the Tyson fight as well, whereas I watched.
I saw the undercard, and then I saw like little bits of the main card.
There was a couple of interesting ones in the main card that, because obviously it should have been Lewis at the top of the card and Curtis Blades, and then COVID got in the way again.
Listen, the COVID storm in America is coming because no Americans are going to not travel for Thanksgiving. I don't know if anyone listening to this knows, but Americans are not great at listening to authority. They're not great at listening to authoritative figures. And here's my beautiful wife serving me vodka. Be jealous. See? You see what I get? You know, she fucked my neck up earlier and I can barely turn my head, but I've had enough alcohol that it doesn't matter anymore. Vlad, how do you say cheers in Russian? You come say hi. How do you say cheers in Russian? Choknimsa. Choknimsa. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
I love you guys.
For you.
Jake, cheers, buddy. Russian power. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I talked too much.
Oh, Derek Lewis. My balls is hot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
One more after. Let me know when you want it.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Lost my train of thought. What were we on about?
How you Americans aren't fantastic at doing what you're told.
Yeah. So the COVID string is going to come bad. Also, Kevin Holland, he also caught COVID.
Yeah, that's gone.
It's going to be a lot.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot. And, you know, it's one of those crazy things. I'm not trying to bring the podcast down, but I had an uncle who died last week. And it was a combination of, he had cancer, but as is the case with a lot of the COVID deaths, you know, if you have underlying factors, if you have all these other issues, it adds on to it, right? And he was a person who was struggling with cancer, and then got COVID and started to recover and then declined, and then, you know, he died on Tuesday or something like that. And I suspect a lot more of these things are going to be happening because Americans just don't listen. They can't all get coordinated. Every state is different. And you're seeing it with the recent string of fighters who are unable to compete because of COVID, and there's going to be a lot more. And I suspect in America it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. With the presidential election and with the travel season and Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, I just wish everybody good luck, but it's going to be a struggle, as you can see with the current UFC fighters. So it was Curtis Blades, right? He's the one that caught it.
Yep.
And Kevin Holland is out. Lots of football players. I follow the NFL pretty closely. My favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were supposed to play the Ravens in a big game, and the main quarterback for the Ravens got COVID, so they postponed. Like the head guy, fucking $30 million a year, whatever it is, he got it, and they postponed. It's getting bad. It's gonna get bad.
Yeah, it's now it's hitting winter and all that, and less sunlight, less vitamin D. It's gonna take its toll in the northern hemisphere, I think.
And while we're on the subject, not totally related, but what was the thing you were talking about Maradona? You know football better than me, so
Yes.
can you outline this a little bit?
He
I know the hand of God thing, but can you just explain? The listeners probably know more than me, so.
So he's arguably the greatest footballer ever in terms of what he did on the pitch. Like
In the World Cup specifically, right?
not just the World Cup? Like he won the World Cup for Argentina, and some people will say he won it single-handedly.
Literally single-handedly.
Yes, literally
'cause
against
he
England.
Did he touch that ball? What's your opinion?
Oh yeah, 100%.
He touched it.
Yeah.
Who are you cheering for? I don't know.
In that game, I was 6, so I was probably running around.
I saw it and thought he didn't touch it. I don't know, but I'm not a football aficionado.
Oh,
so.
he admits himself.
He touched it.
Yeah, he did it, and
Okay.
he has no qualms about it. And
Okay, leave in the comments whether you think Maradona touched the ball or not in the hand of God play. Anyway.
But he's widely regarded as
One of the best.
one of the best,
One
if
of the
not the
goats.
best ever. He's widely loved in Argentina. He's near a deity and stuff like that. And the club team that he's most well known for playing for, Napoli, were never a big team who won like leagues and stuff like that. And then when he played for them, they won the league, they won a European Cup. And
so can you also, while you're chatting about this, pull up that article about this crazy thing that happened with Maradona while you're describing it? Because he, I'm sure everybody listening knows he died just a couple days ago. He was only 60, which is, it's hard to say what affects people and what causes them to die. I mean, 60 seems like pretty young to die as a sports fan, as an athlete. Like 60 is quite young. And I didn't know about this until just now, but we heard this thing that happened about Maradona. You find the article?
So Karen was telling us about it, so he's not sent it me, but we've got the...
I can send you. I can forward it to you if you
forward it to me.
Okay, sure.
And then I've got it. But yeah, 60 is quite young to die unless you did the amount of Colombian marching powder that Maradona did in his life, and then 60 is actually probably quite a good age.
But 60, you think? I mean,
he did a lot of cocaine. And that's not even allegedly.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
That is a pure fact.
Okay, I've sent you some pictures. I don't know if there's an article attached to it, but...
Oh my God.
Okay, so I don't know what we can show or what we can't show. This is what...
Not that. We can't show that.
Can you Google just to fact check while I'll describe what Karan told me, and then you can fact check it while I'm speaking. But so basically, Karan told me that this guy that trains at Stronghold told me that, and he's a football fan. And he told me that Maradona died, and then grave robbers apparently exhumed him or dug out his grave. And then somehow people found out that he had been robbed, and that guy ended up with fucking 6 bullets in his chest, or whatever the case was. I mean, I don't know what this is valid. We might be spreading conspiracy theories, dude. I don't know. This is what Karan told us literally 20 minutes ago, and I was like, all right, without fact checking, let's just fucking spill it out instantly. Guys, this is sports commentary. I'm not CNN. I'm not Fox News. I'm not any BBC. I'm just repeating what I heard with no fact checking necessary. But this is what he told me, and I was like, oh damn, really? Send me the thing. And then we got these graphic pictures. I don't know if they're legit or not, and I can't. So oh God, that's hard to look at.
I don't think we should cite those pictures.
No, we shouldn't.
They're very disrespectful to the greatest footballer.
I don't want to share that.
But then he basically said,
okay, can you pull up the Twitter? There's a Twitter photo there. Just so people have... I don't know if this is right, by the way. I'm not saying this is correct. This might be total conspiracy. I just heard this, and I was like, okay, let's bring it up, because I'm not an expert here, and we'll just, talk about what we see. But can you just... there's a Twitter photo. There's no graphic shit. But yeah, okay, so... So
there were 3 funeral workers who decided to take selfies with Maradona's casket. They opened it up and got each other to take photos of one another. The Boca Ultras then took matters into their own hands. 2 of 3 are deceased, others in critical condition. Now, do you know what an ultra is?
Do I know what?
What an ultra is?
No.
So they're like the hardcore, like soccer, football hooligans.
These like the hooligans, right?
Yeah. Who like it's a criminal enterprise, and they care so passionately about their team. I can believe they kill people for that.
Well, I have no doubt. I mean, he's so famous in that community that is well known for hooligans and people not putting up with bullshit. I don't know, man. If any of this is true, it's disappointing. And I'm not trying to spread rumors or conspiracy theories. He just told us that, and I was like, okay, well, we'll talk about it and see where it leads. But can you pull that up again, just so people can see on the feed there? But you need to switch to the main. Yeah. I mean, if that's true, that's disgusting.
Yeah, he's
for a legend.
Absolute legend of a player. Did an awful lot of cocaine.
And 2 of if he died at 60, presumably he'd be in decent shape. So that's why I was surprised. Well, you never know how these things work, right? Like, when did they stop training? When did they stop working out? When did they stop exercising? All that kind of stuff. But anyway, even at me as an American, I know the hand of God. I know Maradona's name, and I'm totally out of the loop, right? So respect to him, respect to all the football people, respect to all the athletes who put the work in. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any context. I just heard this and I thought it was crazy, and then I had him send me the information, and then here we are. So, we don't need to talk too much about it. I'm not going to show the pictures that I saw. If you want to see the pictures, they're there. They're graphic.
Yeah, definitely don't see those pictures.
They are graphic, and if you're a football fan, I'm sure they will enrage you. I don't know if they're fake. I don't know what the deal is, but just I'm looking at them right now. Oh God, I can't do it anymore. Anyway,
so
we talked about the boxing, Jake Paul. We talked about Tyson. We talked about
Anthony
Roy
Smith,
Jones Jr.
the triangle.
Yeah, let's talk about Anthony Smith. So me and Jake and Charmaine recorded the triangle video. For the listeners, no spoiler alert, but you probably know it at this point. Anthony Smith finished Devin Clark with a triangle choke, and it's one of the most old school triangle chokes you ever hear. Overhook on one side, wrist fight on the other side, throw up the triangle, finish it. We recorded a video where I break down some details. I will admit that I was a little inebriated when we recorded it. Speaking of inebriated, oh wifey, can I get one more shot? There's a reason why I married her. I don't know if you heard that, but she volunteered to bring me a shot, and she also, pulled her shirt up a little bit.
Oh shit! Did you see that?
She didn't. But in my head, I'm hoping she did. When I am served alcohol, I like,
So in the
not sexist. I'm joking, everybody. Calm down. Anyway, Jake, save me from myself.
in the Ashley Evans Smith Norma Dumont fight, the ref had to stop the fight and pull Norma Dumont's top back down because she was in danger of exposing.
Was there a nip slip?
Can
you show me off air? Not because I love my wife, but
no, he wasn't quite exposure, but he was just like stop.
Borderline.
Stop.
It was borderline.
And he was like, "Why is he stopping the fight? Like, something really bad happened." And then he just went over and slightly pulled the top down.
Do me a favor. Pull up. Oh God, what's his name? It's slipping in my head. The guy that wore the Speedo, Dennis Hallman. Pull up Dennis Hallman's Speedo. Thank you. Get in here.
Thank you.
Get in here tight.
Oh, Jake, you gonna have one too?
No, I've got one.
No. He's got one. He's got one, Charmaine. He's got one.
Wait, what am I trying to pull up?
Can you pull me a Dennis Hallman Speedo? Let's see, because if a girl's tit is about to pop out, then they will stop the fight. But watch Dennis Hallman's nutsack pop out in the middle of the fight. We have already, Charmaine. It's fine.
No, but he doesn't have his.
No, I do.
No, Vlad. The Russian king doesn't have his. So.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I made a joke that you pulled out your boobs, but you didn't. But I said it. I just feel like I have to tell you. I mean, if you want, we can add.
That's not
This can be. We just upload this to Pornhub and we're good to go, dude.
No.
lot more viewers that way.
Okay, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Vlad, we love you. Charmaine, love you. Jake, love you.
Cheers.
Solange. 1, 2, 3. Oh. I'll pull mine out. Jake, zoom in. Do I look ripped?
That's not how the camera works.
Okay, you two, same time. No, go away. No. So you have Dennis,
there you
Dennis
go.
Hallman. Yes, please pull this up. Look at that. So that's Dennis Hallman. The word was that he lost a bet or didn't have his shorts or whatever, so he had to go and find a Speedo, I guess. But like in the middle of the fight, he's in some position. His ball sack is like exposed. Okay, and here's the difference. They didn't stop the fight. They
Just kept going.
They're just like, okay, nutsack, no problem. We keep going. Although I think he did get cut later for this, but you know that shit was still out for everybody to see. So anyway, you were saying?
Oh no, just that happened in that fight.
How close was it for all the pervs that are listening?
No, it's not.
It was just he got in front of it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The ref stopped it altogether. Going back to the Smith fight, like the second that fight went to the floor, it was black belt versus blue belt, and you're like, well, this is only going one way. To the extent where Smith was so confident, he actually tried a twister and was like, oh fuck it, I can probably do this. And if not,
I even thought about recording a twister video. You were talking about it earlier. If you want a video on how to do the twister, please send us a message, because post it in the comments or whatever, because I think the twister is a super interesting technique, and there's a lot of techniques that you can get from. So if I take your back, right,
Yeah.
I have 2 feet in between your legs, you know? And if I use one leg and I triangle that leg, it opens up several submissions. One would be the calf slicer, another would be the twister. And he was going for that. So if you guys want to know how to do the twister, there's lots of videos online. You can already find it. But if you want us to break it down, let me know. I can break it down in the context of the fight. But the finish was amazing.
Yeah, but going back to the twister though, and you know more than me, it's safe to say that you've got to know you are dominant on the floor to be able to go for the twister.
Or it's a Hail Mary. Because the one twister that happened in the UFC was Korean Zombie against Leonard Garcia. And I wish I could describe this to the listeners in a way that makes sense. If you don't train, it's going to be difficult. But basically, if you're behind me and you have your legs wrapped around my leg, right? Can you do me a favor and just pull up an image of the twister, and then I can describe as it's happening, and it will make more sense. But basically, if you're behind me and you have both of your legs wrapped around my one, the twister is a spinal crank. It was made famous by Eddie Bravo, and he tapped a lot of people in competition with it, and he basically made the technique mainstream. You got an image here?
I got the famous Angela Lee one.
Okay, the Angela Lee one. Okay, so you can see here, first of all, great ass. I'm not trying to be sexist, but look at that fucking ass. Oh my God. Is this sexist for me to okay, put on men so this is not pervy, okay? Because I run a family business.
So who got the other one? Korean Zombie?
Korean Zombie and Leonard Garcia. I run a family business, Jake. I don't need to see that. My wife is in the back. This is not appropriate, dude. But Leonard Garcia and Korean Zombie Twister. And so it's a spinal twist, right? It's a spinal twist move. It's dangerous because if you do it and you don't know how to control it, it can actually really, yeah, okay, that's a good one. Pull that up. Put that on the main. Look at that. Can you zoom in?
Yep. Oh, no.
I mean, okay, so you can see, can you zoom in a bit more? Cannot?
No,
if you can, okay, so that's a pretty good view. So you can see that Leonard Garcia has his left leg triangled. Jake, do me a favor. Can you get a wider angle? If you can't, it's no problem. We zoom back into that. But so basically, it's a, oh yeah, there's a lot of good ones. You can choose whichever one you want.
Which one? Trying to find one. Oh,
the one that's the most wide angle. Go up. That one looks good. The middle one right there.
This one?
Yeah, that one. So put that on the main. Oh, it's a beautiful fucking submission. Okay, so look at this. So you can see that Korean Zombie has his left leg in a triangle. And a triangle, can you flip to me real quick? A triangle is when you have your knee behind your partner's knee and then your foot is locking in their foot. So switch back now. So Korean Zombie's left leg is triangled to his right leg. And you can see how his left leg is on the bottom. But he only has one hook. Typically, when you take the back, you have both hooks in. In other words, my left leg is between your knee and my right leg is between your knee. But the twister requires only one. And you can see how the bottom leg is pinning your hips in one position. And then if you look at the upper body, can you rotate more toward the upper body position? And you can see how you're pulling the head in the opposite direction that you're twisting the hips. And so there's a twist that you're getting between the bottom hip and the top shoulder, and you're pulling the head, and it's nasty. I mean, you can fucking mess someone up with this submission, and it's a beautiful, beautiful submission. And if you don't know how to do it, can you switch to me, Jake, real quick? If you want to fight the twister, you keep your hands in. If you reach back and you put somebody in the headlock, now can you go to the other one? Now, you see the headlock that Korean Zombie has on Leonard Garcia. If you reach back and you put your arm behind your opponent's arm, it allows you to twist their body where the bottom hip is going opposite direction of the neck. And that's the twister. And Anthony Smith almost had this. And if you want a video breakdown of this, go ahead. I mean, there's lots already, but if you want mine, then just tag it and we'll do it. But Anthony Smith had Devin Clark dead to rights.
The second it went to the floor, like you could just see straight away, like black belt versus blue belt on the floor. This is only going one way, and that it went that way, and then it was a triangle finish. So you're like, okay.
You know what we should do in the future? The technique video that we recorded previously, because Jake and I and Charmaine broke this, not the twister, but we broke down techniques before. We should have that ready so we can refer back to it.
Yeah.
In the future, but the triangle was the number one thing, and Anthony Smith had him dead to rights multiple times. Devin Clark is a 2-time national champion or like a
wrestling champion, but
wrestling multiple times.
Yeah, but wrestling, and then once wrestling gets it to the floor. Once you're on the floor, if you're a wrestler against a black belt in BJJ, you've not necessarily taken the best move there of taking the fight down to the floor sometimes.
If you don't have the skills there, because I was just telling this story earlier, I grew up, my first ever discipline was wrestling. I started wrestling when I was 13 years old, and it was like amateur Olympic style wrestling. And there's no guard, there's no submissions from your back, there's none of that. It's just like take someone down and they stand up. That's it. That's the whole game. Yeah. If I take you down, you stand up. You take me down, you stand up. And then the ultimate goal is to pin your partner's shoulders to the mat. And then I remember like it was yesterday. I had a friend, his name was Adam. His dad was the mayor of my town. This is how much I remember it. This is my first ever experience with jiu-jitsu, right? I was hanging out with my friend. He was a theater guy because my degree is in theater, right? So he was a theater buddy, but he also trained jiu-jitsu. This is the guy that introduced me to jiu-jitsu. And so he came to my house one day because we were doing a play. We were doing a Midsummer Night's Dream.
Were you the wall?
No. I know that you know the play just based on the fact that you said that. No, I was Lysander, you asshole.
Sorry.
I'm the main, dude. I'm the main. But anyway, so we did this play together and we were hanging out, and he knew I was a wrestler and he was doing jiu-jitsu. This is like 2005. And then where I'm from, this is like UFC 40. There's nothing, dude. No one knows shit about grappling. I didn't know anything. So I was an amateur wrestler, and he was a yellow belt. He was a yellow belt in jiu-jitsu, right? And he came over to my house, and we had a projector in the basement, and we had a floor, and he and I started wrestling. And he held me in a triangle. He didn't have it locked up. He didn't have it behind the knee, like the choke wasn't there. But he had his ankles locked, one over the shoulder, one under the armpit. And he held me there for like 5 minutes, and I could not get out of the triangle. The choke wasn't there, but he had the ankles locked.
Yeah, so there's no.
And as a wrestler, I was like, wait, but he's on his back. I'm on top. I should be winning. And then I realized, wait, his shoulders are flat. In wrestling, the goal is to pin your opponent. In folk style wrestling, the goal is to pin your opponent. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, I'm on top, and he's on bottom, and I can't get out of his legs. And I'm like, he wasn't choking me, so I didn't understand the full concept of what was happening, but I just knew that I was stuck in his legs and I couldn't get out, and he kept pulling my head down. I kept trying to sit up, he kept pulling my head down, and it was the first time I ever realized, wait, you can win on the bottom.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing I could do to get out of his legs. And then like I have one hand in and one hand out. I can't punch it, but he could fucking elbow me. He could hit me. He could do all these things. And I was like, wait, so you can win the fight off your back? For me, that was fucking mind-blowing. Like, I'm on the top in this, I can't, because in wrestling, you just are learned to pin. And you're like, okay, you pin, that's it, that's the end of it. But when I realized that that's not the end of it necessarily, and this guy just held me here, I was like, okay, well, what do I do next? So he goes, okay, come to jiu-jitsu class with me. And then I got fucked up by blue belts. The teacher was a blue belt. And I was like a high-level wrestler, one of the top wrestling programs in the country. I wasn't the best wrestler. I was like a B-team wrestler. I wasn't like the starter. I was like one below that. But I just couldn't believe that he was able to control me when I was on top. And then I realized, oh, being on top as being dominant is an illusion. It's not necessarily the case. If you can be dominant on top, but then I'm like, this guy's on below me. Like my face is in his crotch. and I'm losing. It keeps pulling my head down. I'm like, I can't do shit. That was, you know, everybody in jiu-jitsu has their moment where they realize it's like a mind-blowing experience where you're like, wait, I'm on top, but I'm losing. What is this sorcery? What is this wizardry that I'm experiencing right now? And that was the first thing that made me get into jiu-jitsu, was being a wrestler and being on top and stuck in a triangle in my basement with my friend. And I was like, okay, this is totally different. This is a totally different animal. And then I started to realize, and that was the next fight I watched was Gracie versus Matt Hughes.
Yeah.
UFC 60. I still remember to this day. UFC 60. Because he started talking to me about, oh, this is the jiu-jitsu guy, this is the Gracie lineage, and I started to learn the history of the UFC. Then I went back and watched UFC 1 and UFC 2, and that was a catalyst for my whole martial arts journey, was being the wrestler on top, getting fucked up by this dude squeezing me between his ball sack. You know what I mean?
It's just like, what's he doing? I'm winning.
What was yours, Jake? What was your catalyst?
I think, because obviously I'm not the biggest guy in the world, sort of thing. And when I was training out of Equilibrium, and this massive guy came in, super nice fella, but like you looked at the size of him and you looked at the size of me, and you were like, right, these two are going to fight. Who's going to win? And obviously all the money's on the big guy. And so he took me down, got me on the floor, and he was just squeezing the shit out of you. Squeezing the shit out of me. And I'm just laid there completely relaxed.
What do you do?
Yeah, like, I don't care. You've not got me in any sort of submission. You're just tiring yourself out. And about 2 minutes go into the round, and he's fucked. And he can't do anything.
He's out.
Absolutely
and
gassed out.
And then you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
He's tired. He's tired.
And then
he's fucked. He's tired.
I just ragdoll him for 3 minutes, and he can't do anything.
And then you're like, you get that mind blow, that epiphany, and you're like, wait a second. What just happened?
Yeah.
Like,
it was like,
what the fuck just happened? Right? Like, that's the kind of thing that happens in your head. And then you realize, and this is always the common adage that, and I repeat it because it's true. Jiu-jitsu is a superpower.
Oh yeah.
It's the closest thing you can get to super strength. It's the closest thing you can get to a superpower. Like, I'm smaller than you, and I say it with my wife, with Charmaine, all the time. You get caught in something, there's no escape. You're fucked. Right? You're fucked. One more. While we break down the end of this fight. I mean, just me. Jake doesn't need. My wife just said to me, Luke, do you need a shot? And then she pulled her tits out. And I was like, you know what? Yes.
Yes, I do.
She didn't do that. She's a respectful woman, but I just like to joke around, you know. But the point is that blew my mind. And I was like, because I went to wrestling practice. I remember it was the Matt Hughes, the Matt Hughes Joyce Gracie fight. I went to practice the next day after that happened. And I remember I had this black coach. If anybody is listening to this where I'm from, Troy Owens. He's a black dude who was a small guy, and he was one of the coaches of my wrestling team. And the only memory I have of him is like, he had this afro, right? He had this afro. And I remember wrestling with him, and he was the most brutal guy to wrestle with. And he would take his afro. Thank you. Oh, that's not a shot, Charmaine.
What?
Can we just be honest here?
One more?
Look at that. I don't know. Oh God. Sorry. Can you just see? This is not a shot. This is like 3 shots.
I think more
We're all drinking the same, dude.
I think more critically here, show the bottle, because the bottle's the bigger problem.
No, this is one bottle. Okay, so this is the bottle.
That's the
this
second
is the
bottle.
Second bottle. Vlad drank the whole previous bottle.
Hello, coach. With you.
I love you, brother, but you drank all. No. God. Okay, turn to yourself. Let me see Vlad and Jake there.
Hey,
Respect, brother. Respect, brother. The Russian kickboxer with the best 360 kick. Hey, Vlad, you got the best kicks I ever seen, bro.
Yes.
Your kicks are fucking
I
amazing.
appreciate
I
this.
have the video still.
I try my best.
saved.
I got so much respect for you. Let's record the kicks and then I'll post them on the channel, and then
Thank you
all
so
the
much, thank you
Taekwondo
so
people
much.
can jerk
I
off to
started to do my
videos of
Muay
you
Thai
doing
when I was
Taekwondo.
16 years old. Yeah.
Vlad's a fucking
fucking
legend.
beast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, Cheers.
Cheers.
1, 2, 3.
Cheers.
Ho! Oh God.
Feel amazing, yeah?
No pain. Buddha.
No pain.
Buddha.
I think
Buddha. Jesus saved me.
Jesus.
Buddha saved me. Anyone saved me.
You don't walk away like this.
Anyway,